Horse and Friends Radio with Conrad and Raphael.
Hey, I'm Conrad Nodden.
And I'm Raphael Valle. And from Nashville, Tennessee, you're listening to
The Horse and Friends Radio Show. Of the horse, for the horse, and by the horse lovers everywhere. Okay, Raphael, here we are, show number 9 already. Moving right along, huh?
Yep, doing great.
Yeah, a lot of great response so far. It's really encouraging to see so many horse lovers seeing aspects of the show that is not only informative, but it's encouraging. And I really like the broad spectrum so far with the guests, too, because we've had authors, we've got singers-songwriters, we've got individuals that are into natural horse training, individuals that are into horse racing and training. And, I mean, we've really covered a nice gamut there.
Yeah.
And so who is this show, though, that is involved with the wild horses and the fight to save the wild horses? This is even another aspect that we have here.
Yeah, it's Ginger Kathrens. And most of you may not recognize the name, but you probably recognize her face because she is the individual that's been pushing Cloud, the Palomino Mustang stallion.
Okay. Now, also, we still have some great sponsors, and let's hear from them now.
This is Raphael, and I'm proud to say that we have been using Omega Horseshine on Ivory Pal and all of our horses since 2002. Omega Horseshine is made from stabilized whole ground flaxseed, is high in omega-3, and is all natural with no artificial preservatives. Omega Horseshine gives Ivory Pal a strong immune system, that shiny golden coat, and strong hooves that enables him to be barefoot and maintain his peak performance. Ivory Pal loves Omega Horseshine so much that he is the ambassador for this great product, and his pictures are on the Omega Horseshine bag. Omega Horseshine was named Product of the Year and Best in Nutrition by Horse Journal. Omega Horseshine is available at quality feed and tack stores nationwide. To order online or find a dealer near you, please visit www.omegafields.com. For over 12 years, the Dr. Cook bitless bridle has been making horses and riders happy around the world. This is a perfect alternative to using a bit. There are over 100,000 now in use in most all riding disciplines. With Dr. Cook's bitless bridle, communication is enhanced, trust is established, performance is improved, and harmony is achieved. Try the bitless bridle that started a revolution. For more information, call a toll-free number 866-235-0938 or visit them at www.bitlessbridle.com. That's www.bitlessbridle.com.
When your best horse needs the very best video, when your farm needs to look absolutely fabulous, when your special event needs multi-camera, professional coverage, when you need a theme-based movie, and of course special effects, then you need Malibu Video Productions, now in Nashville. Okay, Raphael, on the phone we have an Emmy Award Winning producer, cinematographer, writer, and editor, as well as an award-winning author, and a staunch fighter for the rights of wild horses in the West. Welcome, Ginger Kathrens.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, our pleasure.
Yeah, Ginger, we're so excited to have you. We support you 110% in what you do. I think your perspective on the wild horses, especially the beautiful story that you could tell our listeners about Cloud, my first favorite Palomino. So we support you 100% and commend you for what you do.
Maybe we can start. I'm a little curious too, how you actually got into cinematography. Did you start off with photography fairly young and then decide you want to go to film, or how did that happen?
No, I really didn't start off in photography young. In fact, I was like 25 years old almost before I think I had my first 35-millimeter still camera. But I found that I liked capturing images on film, whether it was live action or still photography, and I've always had such a deep love of nature that I've always been curious and interested and wanted to get closer and photograph any wild animal.
As far as format, do you prefer, like today, do you prefer video HD, or do you actually still use film, or what format are you on?
Well, I was a filmmaker for many, many years, but we transferred to high definition about 2 years ago. And I'll have to say that in our documenting of wild horses, where no one is paying us to be there, it's a godsend because, we can shoot hours and hours of good documentation for virtually nothing once you have the equipment, of course. So it's high definition and digital still photography.
Yeah, it makes it nicer to edit and do the intermediate color correcting and everything too, right?
Oh yeah, you can really you can do a lot of it yourself. We still, for our programs, we employ people who are professionals to do sound effects editing and music composition and color correcting. But if it's a smaller project or just a project for the Cloud Foundation to support our efforts to try to preserve wild horses, then we'll try to do it ourselves.
Yeah, and there's no better use of your camera and filmmaking abilities and how you have captured the beauty of the American wild horse. So before we get into, I know myself, I want to hear more about Cloud, and I'm sure our listeners too, but can you explain to us what is the controversy going on with the BLM and why is it occurring? Just so people understand a little bit of the background of not only, I guess, the politics and stuff, also the inhumane methods that they use to round the Mustang. So if you could just explain that to our listeners, I think that would be great.
And we might need to define BLM for them too, the Bureau of Land Management.
Certainly.
Very good. Yeah, but we'll buy a vowel.
The Bureau of Land Management used to be, didn't even have that name back in the 1940s. It was an organization that was largely stewardship of livestock on public lands. And I think they manage around 250 million acres of public land in the American West. And in 1971, Congress unanimously passed an act, the Wild Horse and Burro Act, and that was designed to protect wild horses and burros where they were living in the West at the time of the passage of that act. And for better or worse, we think worse, they named the Bureau of Land Management to manage the wild horses and burros. And BLM was coming from this, and still is, coming from interacting with livestock permittees who run their cows and calves on public land, and also oil and gas, and people who use our public lands for profit for extractive uses. So when they were suddenly put in charge of a wildlife species, they really started managing the wild horses as if they were livestock on public lands, because they didn't have any concept of how wild horses really interact with their environment. And it's important, I think, for your listeners to understand that cattle and wild horses use the land very differently.
Exactly.
I come from a livestock background. My family raised registered Hereford cattle. And cattle don't like to go too far away from water, and they're ruminants. They spend a lot of time lolling around, and they like to do it near water. They are a herd animal, but they don't have the same social structure of a horse or the same habits of a horse. Horses love to come into water, drink, and leave with their family groups and go onto these upland areas. A lot of times you'll find wild horses on the highest hill in the area. For various reasons, they like upland grazing. They very much need exercise to keep their digestive system going, just the opposite of cattle. Cattle like to lay there and chew their cud and let everything digest, whereas the horse, needs to keep going, and things that they ingest, it comes out very quickly. Within an hour they'll be pooping whatever they ate. So it's very, very different. And very, very much the BLM didn't understand and still doesn't really appreciate the social structure of wild horse society. And it's not like any other hoofed animal in our hemisphere.
Can you tell us, too, now that you've brought us up to speed on all that, maybe explain the phrase managing to extinction?
Well, that's a phrase that was put out there probably 20 years ago, and I didn't buy it when I first stumbled into wild horse country. I couldn't imagine that anything so spectacular, so beautiful, and so interesting from a societal standpoint could actually be destroyed. But within the last 5 years, it's become clear to me that the BLM is managing wild horses to extinction. In other words, they're removing almost everything.
On January 27th, I filmed the following sequence of a wild horse family band being driven toward a trap site in the 1.3 million acre antelope complex of northeastern Nevada. The horses had already been chased 10 miles or more by an inexperienced roundup crew hired by the BLM. Their job? Remove 2,000 horses from their legally designated home, an area as large as the state of Rhode Island. The old mare pictured here had collapsed in a snowdrift, obviously exhausted, unable to keep up with her family that was driven into the capture corral. None were to be released, not even an old, exhausted mare. The crew receives $350 for every horse they bring in, regardless of age. So they pursued the old mare on foot and by helicopter. The chopper nearly hit the top of the fence post, coming within feet of the old mare, who, despite extreme fatigue, fought to get away. Finally, the helicopter backed off, and the old mare trotted off alone. It's the dead of winter in Nevada, and I doubt she will survive her ordeal.
Out there.
Now, is it to give the ranchers the more grazing rights and also the oil companies? Is the bottom line, that the land has more value for profit than for the wild horses? Is that
you bring up the profit word, and there is profit in oil and gas leasing on our public lands. But and that is, I don't think that right now is as destructive to the wild horse herds as livestock grazing.
Right.
And livestock grazing runs at a tremendous loss to the taxpayer every year. Because the ranchers, the permittees, only pay $1.35 a cow-calf pair per month, the program goes in the hole $121 million a year just on the administration fees for the program. And that doesn't include all the other related costs that go into the management of public land. Some economists estimate $500 million a year in losses. So profit doesn't play into it there, but culture does. Because the BLM, many of the older people in BLM grew up on ranches with the livestock permittees. Their children went to school together and church together. and they socialize together, they really are a community, and they sympathize with each other. And although a lot of livestock people don't like BLM either, the culture of BLM tends to side with the needs of ranchers who lease these lands. And their understanding level, I don't think, is very high, or appreciation of wildlife, wild horses being the only species out there, the only big species that we don't hunt. And so what good are they really?
Yeah.
So is really over the excuse they use of overgrazing or whatever, is that an excuse, or is it a legitimate stuff as far as the reason they used for removing the horses?
Well, if you do the math, there's over 2 million head of livestock, perhaps even 3 million head of livestock on public lands in the West. And we believe there's fewer than 20,000 wild horses in 10 western states.
That's a shame. Yeah, it's a real loss.
Kind of reminds me of maybe some of our viewers could associate with the movie Avatar, where there's just no respect or for the nature, God-given nature, there's beauty there to respect, not to put a dollar sign on it. Maybe some of our viewers could relate to that movie.
Ginger, your involvement with the Cloud Foundation, does it feel sometimes when you're coming up against the Bureau of Land Management, does it feel a little bit like a David and Goliath issue for you?
Yes, and I've said that many times. And I've said, if we had money, we'd be dangerous because we're battling the United States government.
Yeah.
Well.
And we're really defending the rights of these animals to live as an act of Congress intended. So yeah, it's a real uphill fight. When the public knows what's going on, they're enraged. Mm-hmm. They don't want to pay for it, and they certainly don't like the inhumane tactics that are being used.
We're going to show a little bit of video while you're talking about this. You had some clips there of helicopter roundups and that sort of thing, and we're going to show some of the roundup techniques and so forth. But to kind of set the stage for the whole foundation, could you tell us about May 29th, 1995?
Well, that was a pretty special day. A friend of mine from Southern California had joined me. I picked her up in Casper, Wyoming, and we drove up, and she could only stay for 2 days over Memorial Day weekend. And we got up on the mountain, and we could see that the Palomino mare in Raven's family, and Raven is Cloud's father, wasn't yet, but almost to be father, was very pregnant. And we came up on the mountain the next day, and it was about 11 a.m. in the morning. We were filming another stallion who was trying to breed a young mare, and the young mare was not having anything of it. And we thought this was fascinating behavior. And that's when I saw the flash of white out of my left eye through the forest. And I panned my camera over, and the Palomino mare came out of the trees with this tottering newborn white
cloud.
Little white cloud, huh?
Yeah, little white cloud. And the clouds were sailing overhead, those real fine kind of clouds that almost look like hair. And so that's why I named him Cloud.
Now, haven't you done, 3 documentaries of that for a PBS, perhaps? Mm-hmm.
I entered the Montana wilderness to make a film about wild horses. But I came to realize almost immediately that no one film could tell a story so big and in many ways so unexpected. What began as an assignment became an obsession, to follow the life of a stallion I named Cloud.
About the time I think I have a handle on what makes wild horse society tick, I'm thrown a curve. It's been challenging following the twists and turns of this complex family drama.
This is a tale of 2 fathers, Cloud and the mighty shaman, who bring up each other's sons. both sons will begin a quest to start their own families, challenging the very stallions who raised them. In this, the third and most remarkable chapter in Cloud's story.
Yes,
Yeah, and also the book, right? You have the books.
Three documentaries, and the books mirror the story, but I get to tell a lot more story in the books, of course, than a 52-minute television program. But, yeah, the programs have aired. The programs are very popular with the public, and they were on the Nature series, which is probably the most highly regarded natural history series on television.
Yeah.
Now tell us about Cloud. I guess he sees you as one of his family members now. No, you go up there, he recognizes you. Here's Ginger.
Probably.
Yeah. I'm sure he does.
The cameramen that have photographed me. So I have the enjoyable and easy job of photographing the horses, and they have to try to make me look good. Steve Krushel and Mario Benassi both said to me, that horse knows when you're here and knows when you're filming him.
Well,
because he's such an entertaining animal and so active. He always seems to do something interesting, exciting, dangerous, or funny when I was filming him. And right from the start, I just this morning watched the first Cloud program with some friends from Texas who were visiting, and Teresa had not seen the first Cloud program. And when you watch that, in his brazen playing with older horses when he was just a baby, it was so apparent right then that he was a horse that was very early on going to try very hard to start a family.
Now, wasn't he actually rounded up a couple times
he's
by?
Been rounded up 3 times with a helicopter.
Boy. Wow.
And we're just praying and fighting that he's not going to be rounded up a 4th time, because how many times are you going to survive that?
How does he get released once they've rounded him up like that?
Well, when he was a 2-year-old in 1997, they released him because of his unique color, hoping that color would persist in the herd because it's such a beautiful color. And then in 2001, they released him. He was a young band stallion, and back then the policy of the BLM in the Pryor Mountains, where Cloud lives, is that band stallions would not be permanently kept. They would be released with their lead mare if that was an identifiable mare. And that was a fairly enlightened kind of management. And then he was rounded up in 2009, and they stripped away a lot of his family. But they did release him. But just recently they've said that they will no longer protect he or his family.
Oh, wow. Why is there no sense, well, I guess I probably know, but I'll ask it anyway. Why is there no sense of this iconic existence of Wild West and native beautiful horses that have the right to be there? Why isn't there any sense of preserving that?
Well, they just don't see things the way we do.
Yeah, I guess.
And in the case of Cloud specifically, they don't like Cloud because he's everything they dislike, because he sheds a light on their management techniques, and people feel they know him. They know his family. So it's not just 500 horses got rounded up this week. It's some of my friends got rounded up this week.
Oh, we understand.
So they don't want that personal touch. They very much want to make it just a statistical thing.
Yeah.
Now I know Cloud, has been captured 3 times already, but what damage does that do to him? I mean, because there are, and you could explain to our listeners, the social dynamics of the herd. I'm sure psychologically and physically it must take a huge toll on him. Yeah.
Well, it takes a huge physical toll on all the horses to be run with a helicopter from a mountaintop at 8,000 feet down into a desert that's 3,000 feet.
Wow.
And it's not over sandy ground, it's rocks.
Wow.
And it's steep in places. So it can be permanently damaging. He was injured in 2009, but it was a cut on his leg, and he was a little lame, but he got over that. Some horses it's like in 2009. It was so hot. It was 100 degrees down at the corrals where they were driving them, and the young bachelor stallions, who are typically the fittest of the fit, the
Right.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old bachelors. Their pulse rates were not going down. Their respiration, they were panting, and for nearly half an hour, their pulse rates didn't come down. And Cloud's daughter colicked, his 2-year-old daughter, and she was saved. I know that they probably worked intensely not to lose her, because that would have been, the public, the knowledgeable public would have been enraged even more than they already were.
Ginger, how do you deal with the obvious emotional drain when someone really cares about something and about these horses that are being, in many senses, mistreated? How do you deal with the emotional drain of that with your cause?
Well, I have the wonderful privilege to be with them when they're not being rounded up, and to sit with them and just be able to be an observer. And the peaceful nature of that is just so renewing that it makes me want to fight even more. My least favorite thing is to witness a roundup. And I think because I'm a photographer, I can hide behind my camera. I can become more objective when I'm looking at things through the lens of that camera and making sure it's framed properly, it's exposed properly, it's in focus. And see, then it becomes more of a job. And I can kind of immerse myself in the job part of it. I think if I had to just sit there and watch, I would go nuts.
Oh, I don't blame you. Well, the way you're speaking up for the horses, because you're capturing those images that are very disturbing. And I know, I think this roundups that they did this summer when it was also very hot, I think they just drive even the babies, even the young foals that can't keep up, and some just collapse.
Yes, they collapse and they die, or they're separated and never seen again, or in some of the most hideous circumstances, their hooves fall off and they are then shot.
So what can our listeners do to help this cause? I know educating the public's good, because you're right. If more people knew about it, there'd be more, people upset and stuff. Is it contacting the congressman? I know, donations. What can we do to help the cause?
Hi, welcome to the Cloud Foundation. I'm Ginger Kathrens, and this is my friend Arrow, Cloud's granddaughter. I want to tell you about a new campaign we're launching called Save the Mustangs Fund, and it's to help us fight for wild horses in the courts. Also, the money will be used for our continuing research and documentation, and to tell people around the world about the beauty of wild horses. I hope to see you one of these days. Happy trails.
Well, you can contact your United States senators and your congressmen, and you can do that. And even if they're a conservative Republican or a more liberal Democrat, the whole expenditure of tax dollars for this kind of stuff, when teachers are being laid off and schools are being closed, there's no excuse for throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at a non-issue, a non-problem. It's just unthinkable. So from a fiscal standpoint, I would say you need to let your congressmen and senators know that you don't want your tax dollars spent in that way. And I know if you contact them once, people say, well, I didn't get a response. Well, contact them again. These are elected officials. Try to get them to make a stand here.
Not only is it a monetary fiscal issue, but most importantly is a moral issue. Sometimes you can't put a price tag on things. There's the right thing and there's a wrong thing, and the right thing is to let those animals be and show respect for nature and so forth.
Well, that respect word is a really important word, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, it's left the land.
Respecting the land, the environment, the water, the air, and all the wild animals that live out there. We're very big proponents of natural management of wild horses. The mountain lion is a very effective predator of wild horse foals.
Right.
And I personally believe that quick death by a mountain lion is far better than being run off a mountain with a helicopter.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Losing your family, losing perhaps your life, for sure losing your family, your freedom.
Right.
That's not to say that I oppose adoption. I'm an adopter of wild horses. I rode my 4-year-old brother of Cloud yesterday.
Oh, wow.
But he was a young animal. He was an appropriate adoption age. He should never have been removed, but at least he was an age where, you can gentle them, win their friendship, la. But guys, they are removing animals over 20 years old.
Oh, wow. Man, that's crazy.
They are not letting anything go.
The old movie has him saying, "If I only had a brain." Well, it makes us
And a heart, too.
see. That's what I was going to say. If I only had a heart, where's the heart for these animals? I don't understand. It's missing. It's just a commodity to be shuffled around.
They do not look at these animals the way we look at them. Coming from a livestock background, I had show steers, and those steers were, taken terrific care of, but they ended up going to slaughter. But we don't eat horses. Well, at least, hopefully we don't eat horses.
Yeah.
And so they're more of a companion animal. I don't think they fall in the livestock category, and they're wildlife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're so spectacular.
They are.
I mean, the thrill of seeing wild horses in the wild, in their family groups, the dad, the father, and this is what I was got to long ago in our conversation. This is the only species where the father is there 365 days a year. He takes
Right.
Maybe some of our families could take a lesson from that, huh?
We can learn from that on a responsible parenting.
Yeah, well, it is, and I've said, there's a lot to be learned from Wild Horse Society. That father's job is twofold. He's to protect the family and to keep the family together. In other words, when the foals stray off, it's not up to the mother to go out there. She could be stolen by another stallion, but it's the responsibility of the stallion to go get the babies and bring them back. And so there's a lot of nurturing that goes on with the stallions, which I think we've portrayed in the Cloud movie.
Yeah, you sure have.
Ginger, maybe you can tell our listeners a website and any other information as to where they can go. And as you say it, when we run this program, we'll put the graphic up so they can see it too. Where can they go to learn more about this and perhaps even donate or be helpful?
Right. Well, our website, and it's a beautiful website that's updated all the time, and you can join our website so you get updates from us when we show beautiful pictures and stories about what's going on in Cloud's world, is thecloudfoundation.org.
Okay.
And yes, we welcome donations. There's gifts that you can purchase. A portion of that is tax deductible. The DVDs of the Cloud movies, the books, posters, pictures.
Excellent.
Those are all available on that website. And a portion of those proceeds go to help us fight to continue to protect the remainder of the wild horses that are still in the wild.
You're doing what has, I think you described it this way, this effort gives a sense of meaningful accomplishment with dignified outcome, and we couldn't agree more. We're so happy that you're doing that.
Yes.
We're pleased that you're sharing this information. And we sure fully back you with all that. And we thank you so much for being such a special guest with such a special topic on the Horse and Friends radio show today.
Well, thank you very, very much, guys, for having me. It's been fun.
Our pleasure. Okay, wow, what a great show that was. Interview, telephone conversation.
And she's brought great attention to the plight of the wild musk. And I call it a plight because it's a tragedy what they're doing to them. It's part of our culture, and not understanding why they have to be driven out and the way they're being driven. The helicopters, just inhumane to what they're doing and how they're doing it. So Ginger has, brought Cloud into our homes, and we have, cheering him on. And actually, if it wasn't for Ginger, kind of embracing Cloud and bringing him through the, writing the books and having him on PBS and everything, he may not be, a wild Mustang anymore, because he has been captured a couple of times. And she said that he has been let go because of the huge negative publicity that they would get. And I say huge negative because they get a lot of negative publicity, but they seem to be like water on the ducks. It just rolls off their back. They don't care. But Cloud is different. So
In fact, she formed the Cloud Foundation in order to do that. Now, also, we're still doing the like button drawing. And the winner for the last T-shirt, number 5, it's a big winner. And the winner is...
Not last, not least, it's Beverly Foster.
All right, Beverly.
Yeah, so Beverly, if you're listening to us, make sure you please contact us and send us your mailing address and T-shirt size.
Of course she's listening. She's
absolutely. I know she is.
Getting on that like button all the time.
Oh, yeah. She's one of our many loyal fans.
Okay, well, congratulations. That was a fun... contest, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Very, very fun. And said if people do want to buy the shirts, they are for sale on Ivory Pal's website, www.ivorynollranch.com. And he has his own store there with the shirts, and we'll be more than glad to send you one.
And he'll talk to them. And does he answer the phone if they called him?
Yeah, he takes the orders. He mans that 1-800 number. Huh?
Okay, well, that's great. What an interesting display we've had with that. So thanks so much for everyone clicking on that like button for us.
Thank you so much.
Who is on the next show? Someone really exciting. We have a man who bears one of the most famous country family names of all time, a man who in his own right, a Western Music Artist of the Year winner himself. We have Mr. Roy Rogers Jr.
Absolutely.
So until next time.
Until next time.
So, folks, thanks for tuning in, as they say, and be sure to be watching for our next episode coming soon.
Until then, happy trails, everybody.
Hey, Raphael, I bet you can't do this.